Welcome to Interviews, hosted by Randy Goodman, Harvey Callis Real Estate, your real estate professional. Get to know our community, our businesses, products, and services that will elevate your life. Please welcome your hostess, Randy Goodman.
Everybody, it's Randy Goodman here from Harvey Callis Real Estate, and I am super excited to be speaking with Bobby Umar, who is a CEO of DYPB, which is Discover Your Personal Brand. He's a speaker, a coach, a 5-time TEDx speaker. He's Inc. Magazine's top 100 leadership speakers as well. I am honored to have you here, Bobby. Thanks for being with us.
Excited to be here, Randy. Thank you.
Well, I'm super excited. You and I have known each other for a long time. I think we've known each other since I first started networking. So
ages ago.
Yeah, so definitely been watching your growth, and it's been awesome, and I can't wait to hear. So tell us, what do you do today?
Well, I'm a speaker and coach, so I basically speak and coach on different aspects of leadership. In particular, my 3 main areas of expertise are personal branding, building authentic relationships, and storytelling. And I've spoken at conferences and events and companies around the world, and I also do a lot of coaching with a lot of my online programs, as well as running DYPB, which is a startup, but DYPB is focused on leveraging personal branding for helping individual organizations.
Wow. Okay. So is this, Bobby, is this something that you always dreamed of doing, or what did you think you were going to be when you were growing up?
I don't know. I was thinking of things like being a hockey player and being an astronaut. I always had a love of science, when I was a kid. So I thought, going to science, be a scientist, I love wanting to go into space. I remember thinking those things. And then, the hockey player thing, because I played hockey a lot. So I was like, oh, I want to be a hockey player. And those probably, I never ever thought, even as I got to high school, about going into business or doing what I'm doing now. So it's kind of funny. I never expect to be doing what I'm doing now.
Right. So what did you study in school?
Engineering. So I did engineering in my undergrad. I was good at math and physics. I thought, okay, engineering might be something to do. But in the long run, I never really thought about what the job would entail, how I would just sit there in front of a computer, not talk to anybody. I never really thought about my personality and my social skills and how they could be best used, because it turns out that's one of my strengths, and I didn't really think about that versus the math. It was just, I never really thought about or planned for those types of things back in the day.
So what was that trend? Like, what did you actually become? And then how did you transition into what you're doing today?
Yeah, so it's been a long journey, actually. First I tried engineering, and then I worked in engineering for several years. And what's interesting is while I was doing it, I was kind of bored. And so I started a musical theater company. So I started producing and directing musicals, and I grew this organization from 2 people to 150 people in 4 years. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. And then after I left engineering, I was like, well, maybe I should go. And I tried to get jobs, and I was having trouble, because they all were starter jobs. And I was like, I spent 4 years. I don't want to start all over again.
Right.
And then I decided to do my MBA and try to switch into maybe getting into entertainment or film and television production type stuff. And I finished my MBA. It went well. And then I was like, well, I couldn't find a job in film and television. So then I took the next best thing, which was brand marketing. Did that for about 3 or 4 years. And again, it was great. Like, I loved the people and I enjoyed the work. But for some reason, it was very stressful, and I didn't enjoy the hierarchy. And I started to realize, corporate, man, I don't like the corporate thing. And what was interesting is that people would point out to me, he's like, you're so dynamic and vivacious and gregarious everywhere you go. But when I see you in a meeting, you're like, and you don't talk. And they're like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I guess and then when I finally left corporate, I found out that, I just didn't do well with hierarchy. I didn't do well with having a position title that didn't mean much to me. I didn't like authority. I didn't like process. And so I just kind of shut down. And so that's when I decided, I need to figure out, gosh, what am I going to do with myself? Like, I got to figure this out. I'm almost 30. Like, what am I doing? And so that's when I kind of really started interviewing a whole bunch of people, and I started looking into my personality assessments and values and things like that. And essentially did my first ever personal brand deep dive. And when I finally did that, I came across 5 key things about me. Number one, Bobby loves people. Bobby loves to nurture. Bobby loves to persuade and influence. Bobby loves to perform and present. And Bobby loves diversity. And so based on those 5 personal brand elements, there was a dozen things I could do, but I decided to do, you know what? Motivational speaker. Boom, that's what I'm going to do. And so I just kind of launched it and went with it, and I haven't looked back. Now though, with, but things have changed with COVID, but for the most part, that's what I went with, and I haven't looked back. It's been great.
Right. Yeah, it's awesome. And then, you always love hearing the stories of how people transitioned and how they find that, nothing they did before or studied for is what they do today. I fall into the same boat. Math and science student, look at me here, right? It's like nothing to do with it. So yeah, I love that. And so who is your target audience? Like who's the one who should be working with you?
Well, for the most part, I think my target audience are typically people who are more seasoned professionals. So they're usually, 30 plus. They have probably 20 plus years experience, but basically between 30 and 55 years of age. And they are entrepreneurial by nature. So they're either business owners or they work in corporate, but they have kind of a side hustle or a side kind of thing they're involved in. And they're basically people who are looking to improve their brand out there, but also create that impact in the community and the world. So I kind of focus on entrepreneurial senior professionals.
Okay, perfect. So if you're a senior professional out there, then you may want to get a hold of Bobby. So Bobby, tell us, how do you help people? Like, is it like an online program? Is it one-on-one coaching? Is it group? Like how do you help people?
Yeah, so I certainly do one-on-one group coaching. I do group coaching. I do one-on-one coaching consulting for sure, but it's around kind of 3 different areas. So one area that I've identified particularly during the pandemic has been storytelling. So because I've been a professional speaker for many, many years, I've done TEDx talks. I help people build stories, and so if they want to build a personal story, like a 3-minute video story on their website, or they want to do stories with their blogs or on LinkedIn or on Instagram, I help them craft really compelling stories using 2 different frameworks for their brand as well as for their story. So that's one thing I do. The second thing is with personal branding. So a lot of people are pivoting, repositioning, transitioning. They're trying to ramp up their brand. So they're trying to think about personal brand is really relevant now, particularly in the virtual world. And so I'm helping people, really define clearly who their brand is, what their brand elements are, who their target audience is, and help them to then create a design and deliver of that brand plan for themselves. Sometimes it's people transitioning from a career to entrepreneurship. Sometimes people are just trying to ramp up their career, ramp up their entrepreneurship of their business. And then the third one really is around relationship building. So people still are trying to figure out, how do I build relationships? How do I engage people? Yeah. And storytelling fits with that too. Like, how do I engage my teams on virtual or on Zoom? How do I engage potential clients? How do I build lead generation? How do I respond to DMs? And so I coach and train people in how to be better at building those relationships and creating that authentic connection that is so important. So those are the areas in which I pretty much help my clients.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, sorry, and you asked about programs. So I do have programs. So one is we have a personal branding program that DYPB has launched during the pandemic, actually, and basically takes my full day workshop that I've been doing for years and combined it into a virtual platform. So it's all self-directed, 25 short videos, 30 plus question exercises, 20 hours of homework materials to take them through the entire signature process. And there's even more bells and whistles and stuff I've added that I couldn't put in the day-long program, because you can spend days and days in this thing. It's a really great program. So that's one. The second thing I'm launching is I do a monthly storytelling workshop where I take 3 to 5 people and we just kind of hone in on 1 or 2 of the stories they want to work on for 2 hours and fix those stories so that they can be ready to go and put that on the marketplace. So those are 2 programs that I'm now putting out there.
Wow. Okay, that's awesome. And you brought up the shift with COVID.
Yeah.
And you and I are very similar in that way with having the events, and your livelihood is speaking and having these events to go to. So it's been a huge shift for you. Can you tell us a little bit about, shifted for you, and then how are you adjusting to that? What have you done with your business to adjust for the way we're doing business today?
Sure. So, I mean, first off, there's two, and so I have two businesses. One is my speaking training business. The other one is the DYPB, which is personal branding, which is mostly events and live training. And so what I can tell you is that the first month I didn't think much about it because I was so busy scrambling with the kids and to get them settled. But then about 3-4 weeks into it, all of a sudden I realized, wow, all this stuff is being canceled. And in most cases, 90% of it was not being replaced by something or rescheduled anywhere.
Yeah.
And so that was like a huge kind of wake up call. I started to pivot right away. I was like, okay, well, let me just focus on virtual because I figured virtual is the way to go. I started pivoting and approaching companies. But for the first 2 months that I did that, most of them weren't willing to commit because they didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what they wanted to do. They didn't know. They were cutting across the board. The first thing they're cutting, of course, is leadership development. So the virtual thing was virtual training wasn't working in the beginning. And so I pivoted again around May to say, look, let me offer some individual consulting and coaching people because people are clearly working from home. They're thinking about their brands. And then I started dabbling in different things. And then I tried storytelling, and that kind of took off. Oh, okay, storytelling, that's interesting. You want that for your teams and for your Zoom calls and for your LinkedIn profiles. I can work on that. And so I started pivoting and started doing. I also booked a ton of calls. So I booked about 200 calls with people to get a sense of where people were and really just share how we're doing. Like, I mean, it was a very interesting exercise in empathy, resilience, vulnerability. I had some really deep, authentic conversation with people. And as that went along, I started honing it as we went along. And then, you know, what I would say is that in terms of the resilience piece, yeah, I also had to learn about dealing with my mindset, my mental well-being. I started doing, you know, every week we go on a hike with the kids. I started going outside for a daily walk. I even started doing something I thought I'd never do, which was I started doing a meditation app. For about 15 minutes a day. And it's funny, I'd always used to scoff at, oh, I'm not that kind of guy. And now it's a game changer. I love it. Like it's a big part of my day. So I've done a lot of evolving and shifting during these months. And you know, a lot of it it's been, I'm not saying it has been hard. It's been very hard, absolutely. But you know, I'm confident and I'm mindful and I'm grateful too. I find gratitude has been an incredible source of resilience versus the fear and overwhelm and uncertainty that we're all dealing with. The gratitude really is a great foundation for what we're all trying to get through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you shared all of that. So thank you for that. And, you know, I know it's important to you to give back as well in general. I'm not talking about COVID. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've done or what you do to give back in your way?
Well, I think for the most part, my favorite way to give back to people is to particularly mentorship as well as, you know, offering support for certain communities. So, you know, for example, just the other day, I just did a talk for university students in undergrad in first year. They're all online, but I signed on. So listen, let me give you some networking tips and how to leverage the virtual world. And people ask tons of questions. That's probably my favorite way to give back is really to young people, youth, and young leaders. I love that group. They're just so idealistic and they're looking, and especially now during COVID, they're looking for support. How do I deal with this whole situation? So for me, that's probably my biggest give back for the most part.
Okay, perfect. And those are our most important people, I think, to actually do that with, because they're still young and impressionable and they're willing to sponge in all that information that you give them. And if you get them when they're younger, then they can use that for the rest of their lives. Many of us don't learn or even implement anything till our 40s or 50s, and we could have been doing this all our lives, right?
Absolutely. I think that, and what I've learned having done 4 careers and feeling at some points lost or stuck or unfulfilled in my life, I now tell people, like, look, focus, you know, dive in your brand, understand what your values are, and carve out a life that makes sense for you, that's going to be aligned with who you are. Because most of us are gonna, go back and reflect way later and realize, wow, I spent 10 years doing this and I didn't like it, or I'm not really fulfilled. The time is now to take ownership of that stuff and be more fulfilled, because I'm here now and I'm feeling great.
Right. Right. I love that. Okay. And do you have any tips or suggestions for everybody out there?
In terms of what?
Whatever is resonating with you right now, personal, professional, whatever you want to share.
Sure. I mean, one of the things I'll say is that the biggest thing I've learned in this current situation is that we're all dealing with three things. One is uncertainty, because we're uncertain about what's going to happen in 2 weeks because we don't know what the data of the COVID cases is. Mm-hmm. We're uncertain next month or next year what's going to happen. And we have to understand that. And the other aspect that's going on is overwhelm. We're overwhelmed with information about how to raise our kids and how to deal with COVID and how to take care of our health and how to run our business and how to pivot and all that kind of stuff. We're also overwhelmed with just the tasks of doing the dishes and cleaning up and watching the kids and mowing the lawn and all this other stuff, taking care of our health. And then finally, we're overwhelmed with disinformation that's out there.
Right. And
so those two things combine to give us mental wellness challenges. So I think my lesson really is that we need to understand and acknowledge those things are at play, mm-hmm. and that it's okay to acknowledge the fact that we are having trouble. We are having trouble with it on a daily basis, or maybe on a weekend, or even a week. It's okay. It's human. And so it's imperative for us to build support networks and to build community. I think community and building a support network is absolutely essential. I have a community of friends. I started doing a weekly community call with my most favorite trusted friends, and we talk every week just about the issues of the day or just to check in. Right. We do it once a week, and I look forward to it every week. Mm-hmm. And then building supportive communities, because there are so many communities out there that are dealing with this crisis, and I think the importance of having a clear, strong, supportive community is essential as we move forward. So that's my really biggest tip right now.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you. And how do people get a hold of you, Bobby?
Well, you can Google me, but because I'm everywhere, but basically across social media like Twitter and LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and all that, I'm at Rayhan Bobby, YouTube as well. But also my websites are rayhan.com and dypb.ca.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much for sharing with us today. It's been such a pleasure.
My pleasure, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this interview hosted by Randy Goodman. We hope you will take action and connect with the incredible business people and leaders in our community. And remember, Randy is always here to answer any questions you have regarding your real estate needs. Be sure to register on the website and stay up to date on what's happening in your area at parkbench.com/millpond.